Hello and welcome to No Direction, episode 143. We are here to talk with Jason Bulmahn today about his new project, Edge of Eventide. Joining me today also is Alex Agunas, subbing in for Ryan Costello, who can't join us yet. Hello, Alex. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty well, Param. Thanks for asking. I'm recovering from my sinus infection. If my voice sounds weird, that's why.
All right, and thank goodness we can't catch it over a Skype call. Hello, Jason.
Not
How are
yet.
you doing?
Not too bad, guys. How are you?
All right. Now, I want to also remind that we are recording this live on Twitch. So, if anybody has any questions, please ask them in chat, and we will be periodically going to the chat for questions to ask Jason here while we have him on the interview. Also, we are also very aware that we are currently opposite the presidential debate in the United States. And because of that, we would ask that you guys not do any political talk in the live chat. We can't afford to moderate that. So anyway, try to keep everything
I promise
past.
this will be. I promise this will be less contentious.
Yes. So try to keep everything gaming related in the chat today if you guys can. All right. So let's get started. Jason, nobody probably watching this doesn't know who you are. You are the publisher for Minotaur Games. And
Yes.
which is one of the we've had you on the show to talk about that, and it's one of the more clever names I've seen for a company yet. And you've also have a long history of authorship with the Pathfinder role-playing game.
Yeah, I may have been the guy who created the Pathfinder role-playing game, so keeps you busy.
All right, so we probably don't need to question your rules choices here.
No,
I think
no, I think
I
I've got
think we
them.
need I think we need to get our fact checkers on that just to make sure.
Oh, great!
That's-
Oh, sure. All right. Now, you've started when you approached us about doing this. You seem to be having a different approach to writing an adventure. So, can you let our audience know a little bit about what Edge of Eventide is?
So yeah, Edge of Eventide is a campaign, and it's a campaign that I'm calling a dramatic campaign, and what that means is that it comes with the characters provided. This is kind of an old trick. It's something I played around with when I was a kid, back when I was playing RPGA games. They had events called Classics, which came with characters provided. And I'm kind of using that to take it to kind of the next level. I think a lot of times we get adventures and we get modules and we get things that have a very compelling story, but really they're one half the story. They are the monsters and the NPCs and the villains, but the other half of the story are the characters. And with Edge of Eventide, I really wanted to create a group of 6 characters that you could step into and take the role of that had compelling backstories, motivations, and plots. And to top it off, if I'm the one creating them, I can weave them into the story in a kind of complete way. Their side quests, their twists, their foibles, their secrets can come to the fore as the campaign plays out. So that kind of makes it unique and different. I'm not sure that there's anybody doing this right now, so I'm really kind of excited to see what kind of stories I can tell using that medium.
Now, this is basically an expansion of a trick you guys have been inserting into your adventure paths with the traits tie-ins that tied in directly to the story. But this sounds like it's even more extensive. So, like, to what extent are the characters tied into this adventure?
Well, so I mean, each one of the characters will be fully created and have a full backstory before the adventure even begins. Once you get the character, each one will also have a number of things that you can change about it. There's going to be some decision points, some inflections that you can change about the character to kind of make it the way you want to play it. And with that, combined with some rules changes, the character really will become yours, but you get this kind of robust narrative about how the characters interact. For example, 2 of the characters in the group are married to one another. One of the characters in the group has an enmity with one of the characters from the married couple, as a matter of fact. They don't like each other. They haven't for years. But all of them have come together to finish what they started over a decade ago, and that's kind of the start of the story. So really what I'm trying to do is give everyone all of these deep rich, engaging character hooks to play with. I think a really good GM has been, most really good GMs have been doing this for years, right? With their home groups, they, will work with their characters to come up with cool, engaging backstories and everything. But even then, if they're running a published adventure, oftentimes the adventure doesn't pay any attention to that. And it can be kind of fourth wall breaking when all of a sudden this thing from your backstory pops up in the middle of a published adventure. You know that the GM is now going off script. That distinction won't be possible in the Edge of Eventide. Whether or not it's coming from the adventure and is critical to the main plot line, or whether or not it's something the GM is improvising, you won't be able to tell. You won't be able to tell the difference. So I think that might create a more immersive environment where everybody kind of has a chance to really kind of explore these characters and kind of go a step deeper than they normally would.
So, I like what you said earlier about them having decision points about the character. Can you give us some examples of what that would be like?
Well, I don't want to give away too much about some of the characters, but because some of them have secrets that I am actually intentionally not making public right now. Not everyone is what they seem. Mm-hmm. So there's some really exciting stuff, but I can tell you a couple things. For example, one of the characters, Carwyn, who is a dwarf who has been living her life as a mercenary, has a relationship to a mercenary company that is in the area where the adventure is taking place. You, as a player, get to decide her opinion of that mercenary company, whether or not she's friendly with it and working with it, or whether or not she's working against it. And that decision will play out throughout the adventure and have repercussions not only for Carwyn, but for other characters as well. So all of that will be scripted into the adventure itself. And so each character is going to get kind of a menu of these choices that some of which will play directly into the story, some of which just change the way you play your own character and don't necessarily impact the overall theme of the adventure. For example, Valterius, the group wizard, is kind of racked with guilt. He blames himself for something terrible that happened, 15 years ago, and he's never really forgiven himself. You, as the player of Valterius, get to decide how that guilt and how that burden weighs upon him, and there's a couple of different choices you can make. That's kind of one of the ways you can customize the characters. In addition, they will all have some rules points where you can change some of the rules choices that are made by the characters.
Okay.
It kind of sounds a lot like the Mass Effect option reel, but on a much grander personality scale.
Kind of, yeah. One of the things I'm doing is actually running all of the characters through psychological profiling, so that they all have kind of different points of view in different places and headspaces that they live. I really kind of want all of these to be really well-rounded characters. But one of the things that's important is that once I hand the character to you, it's yours to do with what you please. If they gain levels, you'll be making those decisions, not me. I'm not going to script out all of their levels or all of their choices beyond that point. But their starting point and their backstory is being controlled by the campaign, so that the entire narrative can be kind of a complete structure.
Can we talk about that starting point for a minute? Is that cool with you guys?
I'd be happy to, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So the one thing that you mentioned is that, at least from reading the Edge of Eventide site, it seems like these characters were adventurers before the start of the campaign. Is that kind of like we're talking about characters who are older than the typical, I'm fresh out of whatever, and I'm minimum age for adulthood or whatever? What are the age points we're looking at?
Most of the characters are in their mid to late 30s when the adventure starts. They were part of an adventuring group many years ago called the Company of the Glade, and they got their start together in the small town of Aubenglade, which is their hometown. And they went on a number of adventures in those early days, and after gaining some experience and starting to, feel they're really starting to bond as a group, they discovered a sinister threat to the town. They went to go deal with this threat, and in the process, things went really badly. One of their member died, a character named Aedmar. Aedmar, who is the brother of Renmar, died during the adventure. Renmar has never forgiven Valtyrus for the death of Aedmar. And at that point, at that moment, at that exact point, when Aedmar died, the group split, and they all went their separate ways. They couldn't adventure together anymore after what had happened. It just went too bad. But the quest that they were on was one that they never really completed. They stopped the threat, but they didn't put an end to it. They just kind of paused it. And they agreed that when this threat came about again, they would all gather just before Eventide to go and deal with the threat once and for all and kind of avenge their lost friend. So when the campaign starts, and the opening scene is the 6 characters gathering at the grave of Aedmar before they set out on their adventure.
That's dark, man.
Yeah, that's something that I'm kind of playing with in this that I think is worth noting. Because I can control so much of the characters and their story and their tale, I'm taking a bit more of a mature bent on this. It doesn't mean it's going to be gory. It doesn't mean it's going to be filled with sex. That's not kind of what I'm shooting for. What I am shooting for is more adult, kind of an adult emotional connection. I want these characters to have a resonance that you can really feel. Like, some of these characters are deeply flawed. They have serious problems, some of which you might be able to resolve, some of which you might not be able to resolve. Other things you just have to cope with. It's real life, and being an adventurer isn't nothing but ale and gold pieces and experience points, right? Sometimes bad things happen, and you have to live with that. And Valtyrus has spent the past 17 years racked with guilt over what happened because he blames himself. So does everyone else. And he spent that entire time preparing for this moment so that he could make amends. And if you take on his role, that is a burden that you will have to take on and try and find a way to make that happen.
Now, we've got a question of chat before we move off the subject of the characters. This comes from RickMaw43. He asks, Jason, which Pathfinder classes will we be choosing from for these, and will they include social combat rules from Ultimate Intrigue?
So, interestingly enough, right at the moment, the 6 characters are all built using core rulebook classes. I do have a thought that if I get enough funding and get enough time, I might make alternate versions of them built using classes from other books. But I really wanted to keep the kind of core expression pretty straightforward. So there are 6 characters. I'm happy to name all of them. There's Valtyrus, who is an abjurationist. There is Renmar, who is a ranger. There is Leylinia, the wife of Renmar. She is a elf and a cleric. There is Carwyn, who is a female dwarven mercenary. She's a fighter. There is Falkir, the Fortune's favored fool. He is the group's halfling bard. And last but not least, there is Kaith. Kaith, who is a human. She's female, and she is a rogue. The group is comprised of 3 humans, a dwarf, an elf, and a halfling. There are 3 female characters. There's 3 male characters. So it's a nice broken out group. And the campaign will also be designed in such a way that if you have less than 6, you can play with less than 6. The minimum, though, is 4, and 3 of those are set. You will need to play with Valtyrus, Renmar, and Leylinia. The 3 of them are kind of more critical to the plotline. The other 3 are equally important, but I needed some certainty that I would have some characters involved. Playing Renmar and Leylinia, playing only one of them would be really awkward because they're married. And they form kind of the cornerstone of the group, and in fact are the only 2 members of the group who actually stayed in Aubenglade. All of the other 4 characters left.
Now, you just touched on this briefly during that, but you mentioned the funding. This is not your traditional project, neither in the creation or the release of. So can you go into how people would get a hold of this? Yeah,
so I'm going with a slightly non-traditional funding method for this. normally for a project like this, you would think, oh, Kickstarter, write the whole thing and kickstart it. Well, if I do that, the cost is going to be pretty astronomical. To be clear, I see this adventure as one that happens in 3 acts, and each act is made up of 3 adventures. Each adventure is probably one really long session, something you could do maybe on a Saturday, right? You know, you start at 11 and play until 8 or 9. Or you could break it up into a couple sessions over a couple weeknights or something, right? So all told, it's probably going to be something that's close to, you know, I would say probably somewhere in the neighborhood with all the character information and all the pieces involved. It's probably going to be something that's over 300 pages in content from beginning to end. Now, that's not a lot in the grand scheme of things, but when I'm trying to get funding for it all at once and I'd have to plan the whole thing out very meticulously, it's kind of hard to do. It would take me an awful long time to do that. So I decided instead to kind of make this as I go. And to that end, Patreon was kind of the perfect funding model. Patreon has 2 ways you can engage with it. The more traditional way is when there's just an artist whose work you like and you want to give them money so that they can not have to work as a fry cook or something, and they can just make their art, which is why it's called Patreon. Everyone is a patron of these people, and in that way you pay once per month. But that model didn't work for me. But their other model does. The other model is pay per creation. So what this allows me to do is basically allow people to sign up to support the Edge of Eventide, and then I charge them once every time I release an adventure. So I am incentivized to continue working on the project, and I get a steady flow of budget that allows me to responsibly make it in a way that doesn't require me to have $70,000 up front. Not that it's going to take that much, but the point is, art and editing and layout and printing and all those sorts of things are very expensive. Now, this doesn't even have a print component to it right now. So basically, if you're interested in supporting Edge of Eventide, you can go to Patreon /Jason Bulmahn, and you will find the Edge of Eventide page. And if you decide to be a supporter, there's a bunch of different funding levels that allow you to basically help me create this project. And in return, I'm going to give you PDFs of it before anybody else can get their hands on it. Because ultimately what will happen is I'll eventually release these PDFs through all of the standard PDF sites like DriveThru and Paizo and things like that. But the backers of the Patreon are going to get it first, and they're going to get it cheaper. So if you decide to support via Patreon and you're going in as a group and every member of the group wants to support the Patreon, there are a couple options there. You can sign up to be an adventurer, in which case you get one of the characters and all of their material, because each character is going to get supplemental packets with each adventure that includes new rules content, new personality bits, new history bits, new inflection points, and things like that. And then, so for just $1, you get all of that for the entire campaign. You'd have to pay $9 total from beginning to end. If instead you're the game master and all of your players are buying their own characters, there is a game master level that's just $5, and that gives you the adventure and all the gazetteers and all the supplements that go with it. Of course, if you're just going to go in as an individual, and this has by far been what most people have been doing, you can sign up as an Eventide Master, and that gives you everything, all 6 characters, and the adventure for just $10. So you save $1 over going the individual route. And then I have kind of 2 premium tiers. The Eventide Lord, which is $25, and that's the same as the Eventide Master, but anybody at the $25 level and above will get all of the material super early. Like, they're going to get a master plot outline this weekend. It's not going to include a lot of details, but it's going to give an overarch of where I think all 9 parts are going to go, and what all the 3 acts, what their focus are, because there's some real big curveballs coming up down the road, and I really want to share it with somebody, and they seem like the right crowd. So, and then last but not least, there's one level for people who really want a deluxe experience, and that's the Eventide Designer, where you get everything mentioned before, and in addition, with each adventure, I will write an additional 1,000 words of content specifically for you, and your home group, giving you new monsters or new archetypes or new character bits or a new encounter or kind of anything you want, depending on your home group.
Wow. That's pretty cool.
I was trying to imagine the situation where everybody was coming in with the individual characters, and I was like, well, that's interesting. I kind of wonder if I could ever sucker a group into pulling that one off. But one of the things I was curious about is beyond we focused on what it'd be like to be a player in this. What would it be like to run this game? Is there any special considerations a GM needs to take in?
Well, so interestingly enough, there's going to be a lot of things going on behind the scenes that the GM will need to track and keep note of. I don't think this will make the game any harder to run. I think the game itself will run like pretty much any other campaign, right? You'll have encounters, you'll have gazetteers of locations and places to explore and other things to play with. I think there's kind of a meta aspect to this, like all those inflection points about the characters that I talked about. The GM will be recording all of those on his end because he'll need those to help him matrix through the adventure. But some of them have some other implications as well. I don't want to go into them because I think it would spoil a lot. But the point is, some of the decisions that can be made will have bigger impacts on the plot. Because the one thing I'm really afraid of, well, afraid is too strong of a word, but one thing that I'm really concerned about is because I'm scripting the characters and because I'm scripting the adventure, that it could be a bit railroady. And I'm really cognizant of that as a problem. So I'm spending a great deal of time figuring out ways to make sure that that isn't the case. And currently, if all holds according to plan, there will be 18 different possible endings. Outside of kind of madness of like, oh, everyone died, or other things like that. I think if it gets to its conclusion, there's probably like 18 different ways it can get there. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of different ways that the adventure can go down, and a lot of different things that can happen during the play of the Edge of Eventide.
Sounding more and more like a Minotaur Mass Effect to me. 2 thumbs up.
Well, now how do you expect people to play this since it's being published periodically? Are you expecting that players are going to jump in before it starts and the game master is going to be running the adventures as they come out, or is this something you are expecting that people will collect most of it before they jump in?
I think it'll depend a lot on the group. I know there are groups out there who will chomp at the bit for it to come out. They will play it all the moment it comes out, and then they will patiently wait for the next piece. I think there will be plenty of groups that just wait for the whole thing to come out, and or at least wait for like half of it. That way, by the time they get caught up, the rest of it has come out. Mm-hmm. I am hoping, if all goes according to plan and I can keep up to my schedule, I'm hoping to release one adventure per month once I really get going. The first adventure is obviously one of the hardest because it requires me to generate all the characters and all of their primary backstories. There's a lot that is happening up front, but the adventures themselves will vary in size significantly. I think the adventure itself will be probably about the same size, but all of the support material for it will vary pretty significantly depending on what adventure you're talking about. I think, Adventure 1 and Act 1 will be very big. I'm currently budgeting it at over 30,000 words of content, which is a lot.
What would that be in
terms of pages?
Yeah.
In terms of pages, a 32-page adventure, like a published 32-page adventure, is generally somewhere in the neighborhood of about 24,000 words, so it's bigger than that. And mind you, this is just for one session, right? One long session, whereas an adventure of that size would generally probably be good for about 2 long sessions. So there's some because the characters give you so much more information, that's a big part of it. But it also includes a gazetteer of the town where everybody grew up and the kind of environment around there, and deals with the first adventure. The second one will have a gazetteer of the local region and some wider areas around there, but won't have all these huge character dossiers in the front. It'll have sheets that update and expand the characters and their options, but it won't have huge character packs like the first one. But I think, so that'll kind of ebb and sway. I think when we hit Act 2, it'll be another big pack again. And I think when we hit Act 3, it'll be another big pack again. So I think the start of each act is where you get kind of larger packets of information, and then it kind of evens out as we go along. So it'll be interesting. I don't know. It's a different way of doing everything. I'm kind of excited to see how it goes.
Now, go ahead, Alex.
Oh, I'm sorry. One question that I had: what level do the characters start at, and when you play, and where do you think they're gonna end up?
So here's another interesting thing about scripting the characters and the campaign around them. They're not first level. They start out, and to top it off, they're not all the same level. That doesn't mean they're drastically different. It's not like there's a third level guy running around with a bunch of 12th level guys. I mean, that would be cruel and unusual even for me. But there is some slight variance in the party. And generally speaking, they're all around 8th level.
Wow, it starts at 8th?
Yeah. But
wow.
This isn't the sort of event that's going to go for 12 levels of play, right? I mean, we're talking about something that you will probably gain a few levels throughout play, but that's it. You're not going to hit 15th, right? That's beyond the scope.
So because Pathfinder is what assumes you level every 4 sessions. So
yeah, and this will assume you will probably level once every 2 adventures.
Okay. Ish.
So if that is the case, then by the end of it, with there being 9 adventures, you'll have gained 4 levels. Now, assuming it works that way, if I can be cryptic.
Mm-hmm. Now, one of the worries I have with this, and this is when you're going with any group into a pre-published long-form campaign, what happens when one of these characters eats it?
Well, fortunately, they're 8th level, so they do have resources and the capabilities necessary to bring characters back from the dead.
That sounds not accidental.
That doesn't mean that there won't be costs. That doesn't mean that bad things won't happen, but it does give you a little bit of wiggle room should characters die, because I understand that as a problem as well. And another thing to note is this is a longer campaign, but I don't want it to be something that you have to play for 2 years, right? It optimally, this should be a campaign that you can get through in a few months of regular play. Because I understand people like to play their own characters. This is really designed to be an event. And as an event, it's better for me to be short and powerful with my messaging than kind of overly long and drawn out. I don't need you to fight goblins for, 3 adventures just to get the point across that there's a bunch of goblins in a wood, right? I can do that in better ways, right? And you're 8th level, you won't be fighting goblins anyway. So,
okay. So what are the general? How do I put this? What's the general theme of the adventure? I mean, is this going to be primarily a dungeon crawl, or is this going to be a social game?
So it's a lot of things. One of the primary thrusts of the campaign, because the characters are so critical, is really more about their story and kind of, to some extent, less about the adventure. The adventure is certainly very important and is kind of the mover and the thing that's causing all of these events to move into motion. But it's really more about them and their tale. So there's that angle. That said, there will be some exploration. There will be some dungeon crawls. There will be some urban adventuring. There will be some kind of very different environments. I'm kind of moving things around in a couple different locations. The scenery shifts a few times, as it were. So yeah, I'm trying to keep things varied. I didn't want it all to be just kind of like, oh yeah, no, it's just one giant dungeon. That's fun, but it's not the story I'm trying to tell here. Although I should note I've had crazy ideas about doing other dramatic campaigns in the future, like dwarves trying to reclaim their ancient ancestral home, and you all play various members of this dwarf clan, and Some of you might be royalty. I've thought that the dramatic campaign was a good idea for a long time, and there are ways that I could leverage this concept into a whole wide variety of ideas.
So, Alex, go ahead.
It honestly kind of reminds me of a Hammond Quest, but with not Hammond Quest. You know what I'm talking about? The TV show.
Oh, Harmon Quest. Yeah, sure.
Harmon Quest. Yeah. It kind of reminds me of that, except not, because you're given the characters and you got to play it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so like I mentioned earlier, I part of the germination of this dramatic campaign came from old RPGA classics where the characters were provided, and those were kind of really hit and miss. Sometimes you'd get a cool backstory, and other times you'd get 2 sentences, and it was just a pre-generated character, and there really wasn't anything there. Those are kind of hit and miss. I also am reminded of the old Dragonlance adventures, where you had all of the characters from the novels, and you kind of had a rich personality for those characters if you had read the novels. The only drawback was, if you've read the novels, you've also then just ruined the adventure you're about to go on. So it was kind of it was a mess, but it worked if you had players who could play it straight. So what I'm trying to do is get at the essence of what that could have been, and the kind of coolness of what it possibly was in a kind of new and fresh way.
Now, this sounds like are you targeting this mostly for more experienced RPG players? This doesn't sound newbie friendly.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't say that it is particularly newbie friendly. I mean, that said, the characters and the adventure itself are not going to be very technically complicated, right? I'm not going to be expecting, these aren't, hyper optimized character builds that you have to play a specific way to be victorious. I'm really kind of, at least on that front, trying to make it open and accessible to players of all skill levels. But I would say that those who are less experienced with kind of deeper role playing might find this a bit more of a challenge. But then again, the only way you're going to get good at it is by doing it. So, I think that, just offering up the challenge of, can you play this character realistically, and can you bring this character to life is going to be a challenge for some. And, I think some of these characters don't exactly get along with each other either. That presents some challenges at the table that are going to be covered in a player pack that all players will get access to, that kind of talks about theme and role at the table, right? 2 of these characters really don't like each other. They won't openly try and kill each other over it, but they are not friends. And there are other tensions as well in the group. That's just the obvious big one that I even have teased in some of the blogs. Reminding the players that they are but actors, and once they step away from the characters, it's okay to be friends with the people who you are rivals with at the table is an important note.
We've got a question from chat. This one's from Rick Mulligan. He says, so I'm guessing this Adventure Act extravaganza will be based not in Galarian?
No. So this is set in a as of yet unnamed campaign setting. The specific details are kept relatively open-ended for GMs who want to set it in their own world or set it in another known world. Basically, all you need is a town with the nearby mountains and another larger city nearby. Those are the main locations that must be accommodated. It's pretty easy to slot those in almost anywhere. So there are some specifics that are called out that I'm slowly working together into a bigger kind of micro setting, but I wouldn't say that it's going to be anything that's mandatory. You will be able to easily slot this into any campaign world. To that end, I barely discuss deities or gods either. Leylinia is a cleric of the Mother, who is a matronly protector deity. So that's pretty straightforward to map into almost any setting. So it's relatively easy to work with.
So if I'm James Jacobs and I want to set this in Varissia, it shouldn't be too hard for me.
No, it shouldn't be hard at all. No, I'm specifically designing it in such a way that you can really take it and drop it into any campaign setting without a problem at all. You might have to do some adjustments here and there, change a couple god names and things like that, but that's really minor in the grand scheme of things. And even then, to some extent, you can just call them, that's what they call that deity in this part of the world, and just carry on as if it's not a big deal. So yeah, and some of that, I think will, I think that the biggest challenge will be finding things that are geographically correct for the adventure. But even then, it's like, forest, mountains, city, town. That's not hard to find in close proximity. So
I'm thinking this is going to be more traditional fantasy in its trappings then.
yeah, actually, I mean, I'm not saying that it's going to be, just like, oh, it's just orcs. That's the big danger, orcs. It's a little bit more than that. The last time the characters faced off against this menace, there were all of these dark-robed figures wearing all these moldering, rotting robes, and when they died, they tended to explode in flashes of light.
That sounds dangerous.
So I'll leave the more clever to figure out what it is that they were facing in the past and whether or not that has any indication on the future, but we'll see. This isn't really... The great part is it's not really a spoiler because all the characters know this. So that's kind of a fun little part about this, is that I can actually talk about what happened the first time and use it as a way to kind of tease the adventure that's to come. But, I'm not spoiling anything because the characters already lived through that.
So when the characters are provided, but what are you going to do if you got the player who insists on trying to bring his own? Is there any accommodation for that?
Well, so to be clear, you could take the adventure and just run it with any characters. I think you're losing a lot of the experience, and you'll be losing a lot of some of the scripting that's going on. So this is inside baseball, but these adventures are being designed with an A plot and a B plot in most cases. And the A plot is the main through line of the story. The B plot really kind of deals with one of the characters and their struggles and their challenges. So if you strip out all the characters and just play characters of your own, all of that B plot material becomes less useful. You could still mod it to the characters, and if the characters were willing to take on some aspects of those characters' previous backstories, then you might still be in business, but it's going to require a lot more work on the GM side. I think ultimately, I'm really kind of designing this in such a way that this is being made to be kind of an experience. And I hope people will come along for the ride. I understand that there's probably going to be groups out there that are like, no, I don't want to play someone else's character. I only want to play my characters. And, I respect that decision. I know that's a risk going into a product like this. And the adventure can be run without them, but I think you're losing a lot if you do.
In a lot of ways, it sounds a lot like the, I'm going to use the code name, the We Be Blank series from Pathfinder Society. I mean,
Exactly.
except longer and way more in depth.
Yeah, and I'm also going for something decidedly more serious. That doesn't mean there won't be humor. That doesn't mean there won't be entertaining parts. I mean, Falk here will provide enough comic relief for the whole party, trust me. But I think, the heart of the format is similar. I think these characters have a lot more to them. I think my current script and my current outline for most of the characters is you will get a one-page character sheet, and in addition to that, you will get approximately 3 pages of character background, interrelation notes, secrets, motives, and other tidbits that I can't talk about. In addition, one of the other great things is I actually can write new rules content for the characters. For example, Valtyrus has a couple spells that he himself created specifically to help deal with the upcoming threat, because he spent the past 17 years getting ready for it. And part of that was creating some unique spells to help him with the dangers that he knows he's going to face.
Nothing more dangerous than the wizard who's had time to prepare.
Yeah, exactly.
So he's the most dangerous PC of all because he's had 17 years to prepare.
Well, it hasn't all been crafting magic items and making spells. He's had other things to do as well.
Oh, so he's not been obsessively Bruce Wayneing it in a cave somewhere.
Not quite. He did realize that he needed more experience and he needed to be more powerful, and he understands that you can't do that sitting behind a desk. But his goal has always been to gain the power necessary to put an end to this threat.
So, what are some of the support material that are going to be provided for this? Is like, obviously this will be chance. Will there be character art? Will there be things like that?
So yeah, let's start off with some of the basics. At its most basic, because I've already ordered these, despite the fact that I didn't have any funding, I still ordered them anyway. I have ordered full body character illustrations of all 6 of the characters. You can, if you watch the video on the Patreon page, you can see some of the sketches. They are being done by Lance Red, who is a fantastic artist who has been working with me very tightly on these characters and is also very interested in the characters and their interrelationship so that he can make that part of their art. He had a great moment the other day when he was doing art for Renmar, and he was like, wait, Renmar's married to Leylinia, right? And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, well, what if she gave him a charm that's tied to his bow? And I'm like, great, yes, let's do that. That, looks like it's from her gear, not his. So there's little touches like that he's including. But yeah, there will be character illustrations for all of the characters. And I've ordered kind of the adventure opening illustration, which is all 6 of the characters standing at the grave of Aetmar. And that's kind of the cover image for this adventure. For the additional upcoming adventures, I plan to at least order a cover image for each one. But unless I get more funding, that's probably going to be it. Art is really expensive. And as much as I like having it, it eats up a lot of my budget making that happen. So until I get more supporters, it's going to be a little tight. But that said, if I get more supporters, I can add a lot to this project. I have a lot of kind of connections in the industry and friends who are willing to work with me on their, in their specialty to kind of make this project even better. So, I'm looking at adding professional maps. I know a number of good cartographers who have very reasonable rates. I do a pretty mean map myself, and I'm pretty good at black and white inked pencil maps that are hand-drawn. They look really pretty good, and I'm going to start having some samples of those soon. But I wouldn't mind having a professional cartographer give them a full color treatment. Obviously, I'd like to be able to hire a professional editor. I do this for a living, but another pair of eyes always helps because I have my blind spots. But once I get into the higher funding levels, then I start getting into really exciting things that are more than just like it's a better product, but are also like just additional straight up add-ons. Like, I've been talking with Ben Loomis of Sirenscape, and he is super excited to do a custom soundtrack for this. You would need a Sirenscape membership to get it. It won't be part of the Patreon product for free, but this would give me the time to sit down and mix all the sounds and make up the appropriate kind of Sirenscape sound sets for each individual, portion of the adventure, which could be really cool. Like, when you arrive in Aubenglade has its own kind of soundtrack and milieu to play, whereas the fights have their own thing, and once you go to some other locations, they have their own sounds. And I can even then start calling in favors from friends to get them to do voices of specific characters to be in sound sets. It could be a lot of fun. But that's very time-consuming and is something that I need more funding for. I even have some connections with people who know how to make, metal minis. So who knows? Those are things I haven't explored very deeply yet. But if I have the funding, anything's possible. I'm also hoping to add digital assets and handouts, things like, digital stat blocks for the characters in the various software suites, maybe even digital maps, digital battle maps and things like that for people running it using Roll20 and things like that. So, but all of that is kind of waiting for more funding. I'm not spending a lot of time on it until I know I have the funding necessary to set aside the time to do it.
Now, this sounds like something that should the project be successful, very successful, a sort of zeitgeist community could form around this. Is like, are you supporting a place where people can talk about, well, this episode just came out and this is what we did in it and how'd you guys do it?
That's something I think I can pretty easily add message boards to the Minotaur game site through my hosting. I'm kind of leery to add message boards because they generally need moderation, and that is a huge time sink. So it may be the sort of thing that until I find a solution to that there isn't an easy place for that to occur. I might have to rely on other sites for that sort of support. But it's something that's forefront in my mind. I would love to have a community where fans of Edge of Eventide and the players and game masters of Edge of Eventide can get together to talk about their experiences, right? I mean, that's kind of one of the great parts about running an adventure like this is that moment where you gather with other friends who have also played it, and you can kind of share your story between each other about how you solved a certain problem or how it played out at your table. And key to that is going to be making sure that it does play out different at each table, and that there are plenty of different kind of results of various choices that people can make. So I'm working a lot to make sure that the game has a lot of those features in it.
Yes, we at No Direction know the pains of trying to work with forum systems.
Oh yeah, we had to give ours up. I mean, it was just the spammers had overrun it.
Yeah, and that's my concern as well. I just don't have the technical manpower or time to maintain my own personal forums yet. That's something that requires employees and people who spend their days doing it. So until then, I may just rely on the forums on other sites to be some of the discussion points for this. There's already a thread up on Paizo.com that I started myself. There's a thread in the publishers forum of EN World, and I'm kind of scoping out some other sites where I can start some threads.
Mm-hmm. So if people were more interested in learning more about this or getting involved, where should they go?
So there's a couple different places they can go. The first place they can visit, obviously, is minotaurgames.com. On that site, there's the main blog of various posts, but there's also the Edge of Eventide page, which kind of goes into the campaign itself, talks a bit, gives you about a one-paragraph description of all of the characters, and there are links to each one of the teaser blogs that I've been putting out. There's been, for the past month and a half now, I've been doing these teaser blogs, which are just every Friday I release one, and it's basically a small story from the perspective of one of the characters. And we've done Voltyrus, Renmar, Leylinia, Carwyn, Falkir, and this week is the last one, and it's Kaith. So Kaith's will go up on Friday, and I'm really excited to get that up for everyone to look at. As a matter of fact, I think I have a little spoiler from hers. I've got a little, I don't know if you can see this. That's a little thing from her upcoming blog. That's the other thing that's been really fun about putting these together. I've been putting together art assets, and I'm not sure if people have realized it, but they're actually photographs that have been running through a bunch of filters. So it's led to me learning how to do cartography and buying weird things at flea markets, like this little dragon sculpture, which I really enjoy. And using those as props for the various characters and setting up their scenes based on kind of some of the things that I can find. So Kaith is this Friday. So that's the sort of thing you can find at minotaurgames.com. But if you're interested in just signing up, if what I've told you here seems like a good deal, you can go to my Patreon, which is patreon.com/Jason Bulmahn. That's Bulmahn. That H always trips everybody up. And you'll be able to find it there. There's also links to it, obviously, on my Minotaur Games page. You can't miss it. So
we'll have links to it in the show notes and on the links.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm up to, and where it's at.
Excellent. Now we're coming up on time, but you got time for a listener question?
Sure, I'd be happy to.
Excellent. Yasumoto asks, "I'm sure you love them all equally, but who's your favorite character?"
Oh, that's really tough right now, actually. So each one of them is kind of, they all have their damages. I tried to make them as much like real people as I could, within reason, obviously. So each one of them has their own flaws, their own kind of vulnerabilities, their own weaknesses. I really, which one's my favorite? Falkir is really pretty delightful. He's a bard. He's very famous. He's a famous bard. The entire group has heard of him running around, playing for nobles and being this renowned bard. Mind you, he became renowned after he left them. And they don't know him as Falkir. They know him as Kyr. That was his name when he lived in Aubenglade. And his story from back when he lived at home is very much different than the story he portrays to the outside world. So he's kind of the character that on his sleeve is kind of uh, obviously a bit of a trickster and has a bunch of fun bits to him. So that's even played out a bit already in his blog. Because I'm not sure if people caught on to it, but Carwyn, whose blog was 2 weeks ago, her blog was her at a bar getting rather tanked and talking to the bartender about this terrible thing that happened to her 17 years ago. And she even drops that little bastard Kier is probably out there telling some tale of it that doesn't even involve them. And then lo and behold, the very next week is Falkir's blog where he's in front of the Duchess telling this same story, but without any of them in it. So it's there's some fun, entertaining bits that I think some folks have started to catch up on. And once the characters start coming out, I think those blogs are going to become very revelatory. So it's pretty fun. Falkir is very entertaining, but I really do like them all. I love Renmar and his kind of longing for glory that is now past him. He kind of is starting to feel his age, and he doesn't feel young anymore, and he doesn't feel like an adventurer anymore. But he's got this daughter that he wants to be there for, but he also wants to go out and do crazy adventures like he used to. And it's something that I think, me growing older can certainly relate to some extent. So I really tried to make sure all of these characters have something in them that people can latch on to in various ways and and make their own.
Okay, so
Yeah.
go for it, Alex.
No, I was gonna say it sounds cool.
Yeah, sounds excellent.
I'm color me intrigued.
Okay. So where can, besides the project itself, where can people go to follow you and some of your other work?
So if they want to follow me and all the news about what I'm up to, there's a couple different sites you can do that on. The easiest one is facebook.com/Jason Bulmahn, Bulmahn. If you also search in Facebook, just make sure you look for Jason Bulmahn Game Designer. If you search for that without the game designer, you'll find my personal page, which is just kind of for friends and family. Whereas my public page is where I post all the news about my work. I also have a Twitter that you can also find at twitter.com/Jason Bulmahn. I have a Pinterest at pinterest.com/Jason Bulmahn. And what else do I have? I have a Instagram, which I think you can probably guess the link to now. So yeah, I'm on all the various social media platforms. I'm on Google Plus too, if anybody is still on there. I don't know that anyone is, but yeah.
There are dozens.
Yeah, I can cross-post all of those. So that's kind of the most common ways that you can find me and find out all about what's going on with me, what's going on with Edge of Eventide. I even posted a link today of the new Guardians of the Galaxy 2 trailer, which looks great. So it's nerd news and whatever I find interesting at the time. But that's also where you'll find all of the most up-to-date news and information about the Edge of Eventide.
Excellent. Thank you so much for joining us. We will be right back shortly. Hopefully, we'll be able to find one missing Ryan Costello Jr.
Good luck, guys. Thank you.
Thank you. To the nether we go, Param.
See you guys soon.
See you later. Bye.
Hopefully you didn't crash it. And we're back. Alright. It turns out that one Ryan Costello Jr. is still lost. If anybody finds him, please return him to No Direction Podcast.com.
We gazed into the nether, and the nether told us that Ryan Costello Jr. could not be found 404.
Yep, sorry guys. Well, hopefully we can rebuild him next week, or we're going to have to give Alex a makeover.
Can I still be the Everyman Gamer? Could I be Alex Costello, the Everyman Gamer?
Only if you're Alex Costello Jr.
But I thought Ryan got rid of the Junior.
He did. We're bringing it back.
We're bringing it back like yes. 1990. All right.
Right. All right. The truth be told, Brian's got some important things going on and he can't make it. So while we are still here, one of the things me and Alex have in common, we're going to be bantering, and if anybody's got any questions for us during the show, please spit them out in chat. We'd be very happy and thankful to engage there. But one of the things me and Alex have in common lately is that we have both been playing through Reign of Winter, and we often back and forth about this. So, Alex, what's your experience been so far with Reign of Winter? Are you playing or GMing first?
Well, both James and I, James being James Ballard, the Code Switch blogger on No Direction Network, we are both playing in a friend's Reign of Winter game. It's our friend Robin. We joke that it's her Reign of Robin as a result.
All right. So, what's your character?
I play Zanzo Shatan. He's a Kitsune bard. I've wanted to play a bard for a long time, and you know, There's something in PFS that you can't really catch with the Kitsune, and that's the whole my party doesn't really know who I am. So like all the players know that I'm playing a Kitsune, but none of the characters know yet. We're actually in book 3. We've been playing for over 6 months now, and I still have the secret.
They're just gonna think you're a bit by a werewolf or something, a strange, weird red werewolf.
It's gonna be great. I'm so excited. There's a lot about him that's weird and fun. His kind of general demeanor and backstory is that his family is part of a small secluded Kitsune nomad group that basically goes around Varissia and pretends to be Varissian gypsies and leads the life on the trail like so many Varissians do. And his father died. He got murdered by goblins in a goblin raid, and his dad always wanted to go out and see the world, but he settled down with Zenzo's mom. They had a family, so Zenzo thought he would go out and do his bucket list by, going to see the world, and the first place Zenzo wanted to go was Absalom. So he heads south out of Varissia, and he's heading to Absalom, and then all of a sudden, he runs into this weird snowstorm in Taldor in the middle of summer, and he never made it to Absalom, but
intro Reign of Winter.
Yeah, he did find Reign of Winter.
Yeah.
So, I have the Wayfinder racial character trait, I think it's called, where I get a bonus language and whatnot. So it's a lot of fun. James plays a Dampier jerk.
Jerk. That's a class now.
Yeah, so he's a jerk. We don't really know all of his backstory yet, but he's from Ustalav. He's an Ustalavic noble. He's got a really creepy obsession with vivisection. He's a multi-class rogue swashbuckler, and he is our primary burst damage guy. So he runs in, and he's got the scout powers, so he charges and things just explode. As part of his ongoing storyline, he's been finding these weird Dampier kids all over the place, and so he found 2 that were alive, and so now he's mentoring these children. So our neutral evil Dampier rogue has these 2 kids who he just calls the children, but it's really weird because he's kind of a decent parent despite being really wicked and really because he likes him. He's oh, I have to train you 2 for the courts. So it's wow, you're actually not bad at this. My character had this conversation because up until that point, my character had been the good with kids character. I was taking care of one of the major NPC's kids throughout most of the adventure. So yeah, it turned into a wow, because James and I play opposite ends of the alignment spectrum. I'm neutral good, he's neutral evil, and we had been clashing a lot throughout the adventure, and everybody kind of had, because our party of 5 consisted of a chaotic neutral blood rager, a lawful neutral paladin of Asmodeus, or not paladin, cleric of Asmodeus, me being a chaotic, a neutral good bard, and James being a neutral evil Dampier, and then we have a shaman, vitalist character who's just true neutral. So like our party is neutral, but like everybody's on every possible alignment of neutral, and that's kind of how it happened. Like nobody planned it. Yeah, so we have a lot of weird fights, but we were at the point now, we're at book 3, where everybody has kind of like something about the other that they admire in some way. So, you know, like when everybody's neutral and nobody's really, you know, polarized, like you can find common ground with people, and that's kind of how our party works. So it took us 3 books, but we've turned into a fighting force. We're ready to save Galarian as soon as we survive Artrosa, which hasn't been happening. We had our first death 2 sessions ago.
Oh, an actual death, or were you able to bring him back?
No, he got... The only way we could bring him back was with the reincarnate spell.
Why did he come back as?
Okay, alright, so first of all, the story isn't good unless I tell you what he was before he died. Okay? So, before he died, he was an old blood rager, a human blood rager, who was old.
Okay.
Like, literally old age category. Had, like, the -3s to everything. Like, he was an old blood rager. And he died and got reincarnated, and as I'm sure you know, the reincarnation spell brings you back, you know, in a young adult body. But, he came back as an elf.
He came back as an elf.
He came back as an elf. So literally, like, he was 70 years old when he died. He's technically about 40 years older biologically, because, you know, 110 minimum adult age, whatever. But, like, it's also almost like a second youth at the same time, because he's now, like, the equivalent of, like, a 16 or 17-year-old elf or whatever. And... like, on top of that, being made young, got rid of all of his aging penalties, but kept all of his mental scores. So he's got all of the human, like, from being an old human, like, bonuses to his charisma and blood ragers and stuff, but, like, all of his old penalties are gone. So he actually got better by dying.
Oh, well, I mean...
it's hilarious.
I'm sitting here asking, like, well, gosh, if they've got connections like that, it's like just lining up to suicide into the mobs just to come back. I mean, I guess you don't want to come back as a badger or something, so be careful there.
Yeah, I mean, like, he got close. I think he was 1 away from null.
Null.
That would have been really funny, though. I would have enjoyed that. So how about you? How's your group going? Are you playing or are you running?
I am the game master, so I have a whole different perspective on things. I am running it. Our group is nearing the end of book 2. We haven't got to play since last episode. Just a couple of cancellations required. They are... I'm having to beef things up because they're not... The whole group is not optimized, but a few of them are very optimized, and to the point that I think it's becoming a bit of a contest between them. So I'm having to beef up the opposition a bit so to keep up with them. And I always feel weird when I'm doing that, but I want to make sure this stuff is impactful, and if they're one-shotting everything, then they're not having the fun they want either.
So, like, our group was pretty well optimized, too. I think our highest optimized character is actually our dwarf healer. It's a really weird build. It's borderline broken, if I'm going to be honest, as a game guy. But it's when you're a broken healer, it's like... It's weird being broken as a healer, because instead of encounters being over quick and, you know, you feeling bad because your monsters died, you feel like your monsters aren't really doing anything sometimes, so that can be frustrating. But at least I can assume that's what my GM is feeling. If I was in her position, that's where I would be. I'm not quite sure how she feels about it.
I mean, do you leave the session and they're in tears, clutching the bestiary, going, "Why? Why?"
No, Robin is pretty awesome. She really just wants to get to the witches. She loves Irison, and she's playing for Irison, and, like, every time a witch is involved, she gets super happy. Like, there's this one witch with a really special superpower in Artrosa that you fight almost immediately, and, like, we had a really tough time with that witch, and she was gleeful. Like, the happiness on her face, like, she was just so excited, and like Artrosa itself has been the most deadly dungeon I've ever been in. Like, it's scary actually at some points. I've been like holding the table, like, oh my gosh. I would say that for us, book one was kind of a cakewalk. We actually got a lucky bow crit on the last boss and killed him in one shot. And then book two was pretty easy until we got into the city, and there were a couple encounters that were tough there. Like some of the troll encounters were hard, but it generally wasn't too bad. And that last boss I trivialized because I hit her with blindness, and then she really couldn't do anything. And then, or no, I hit her with glitter dust. Same difference, but you know. And then the book three, it's called Maiden Mother Crone. It's been brutal. Like, James has been some combination of blinded and or cursed for every encounter in the book so far.
So far, the counter that our group has feared the most is, do you remember, some minor spoilers coming up, but super minor, the goat?
In book two? Or book one?
At the end of book one.
Yes.
That goat wrecked face. I don't know. It shouldn't have. Mathematically, it wasn't, but they were scared of it because, like, I played up the creepiness of this goat in the corner, and then it finally got there, and then it channeled. He got to channel some of the spells through the goat, and then they were like, "Crap, that goat's horrible."
Like that was one of the things for us where, like, because the boss died so quickly, it was kind of like, oh, it's just a goat. Like, you didn't get to do any of the fun spells to it. But, like, do you know in that same dungeon, the druid?
Yes, the druid is fun.
Yeah. Oh my god, she was terrifying. Like, she summons this horrible swarm, and the thing they do to you, like, we were all like,
oh man. They ran into those swarms early on, kind of going in there, and like, this, if you notice, this path is very dark and kind of breaks some of the rules that they've listed out in writing assignments that we've seen before.
Yeah, like, let me do these terrible things to you.
Right.
Like I was mentioning, like, the debuffs in Artrosa are painful. They are painful, and they are never ending. They just keep coming. Like, you get rid of one and you're like, I'm good. It's not. It's fun. Don't get me wrong. It's fun, but the pain and the suffering is real.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, of the three books, I think my favorite is probably the Shackled Hut so far. With Maiden Mother Crone being tied with the other one. What is that? The Snows of Summer. I felt I've been really struggling trying to figure out, like, why everything is trying to kill us in book three. But then that's kind of like been a Debbie Downer. But book two is really well done. It's got a lot of cool characters. Zanzo, my bard, accidentally seduces everybody, so I accidentally seduced the one NPC you meet when you first walk in the city.
Oh, the one that has a whole side. Oh, you wouldn't know. That has a whole sidebar of what happens when she gets seduced.
Yeah, it was an accident. Like, I thought it would work, and it worked too well, and so now she travels with us now.
That's
whenever
great.
we have a player absent, she's our sub. So, like, you know, if there's a week where the Blood Rager can't make it, she pulls out that character's sheet and hands it to me. It's like, guess what? You get to play her now. You know, I'm like, oh, okay. And so, like, it's been like a weird ongoing storyline with, like, us being together and then her finding out, like, I'm not what she thought I was. So then, you know, we broke up, and it's been a really weird little, like, I'm like, look, we're trying to save the world. Can you, like, not, like, do this right now? She's like, no.
We need to be super careful about spoilers, think too much, because this adventure path of all of them kind of really relies on those big revelation twists every so often. Now, of course, they've gone and spoiled a bunch of it themselves, but I'm lucky enough to have a few players who don't know what the big spoiler is of this whole thing.
I mean, like, this is kind of a spoiler, but the spoiler's in the title.
Right.
Like, I mean, Yeah,
I'm not even going to tell them the title when we get to that book. I'm just going to be like, and we're
no.
moving on to book 4, or no, that's book 5.
You should call it The Snows of War is what you should call it.
Mm-hmm.
Say the book is called The Snows of War.
Right.
And then like when they find out, surprise!
Yeah.
And then like you could play like a happy movie set music soundtrack like do. This is what it's actually called.
Oh man. All right. But you mentioned bringing on the character. There's a surprising number of characters in this. This is a traveling. The theme of the game is you're doing a lot of traveling. And there's a surprising number of characters that can stick around. I mean, it's almost.
Yeah.
I was like, are we playing Pathfinder or Doctor Who? We're just picking up these random companions.
Dude,
Tenpenny.
it's like Jade Regent without the annoying caravan rules.
Right. So like, Tenpenny, the orc cook, was one of the characters that was sticking around that should not have.
Dude, she left. She took her money and left. Like, she took her money and was done. Like, goodbye.
All right. I've also noticed that it's very dark, like super dark. Book 2 disturbed my players worse than Hook Mountain Massacre disturbed my players.
Wow.
Like when they got.
Was it?
Well, you can't super spoiler. Yeah, but it was that section when.
Yeah.
Like just to keep in mind, just for a general warning or a trigger warning for this adventure is, Paizo usually has a rule against child endangerment in their adventures. They don't. They break that the heck all over this adventure, left and right.
And
it's
there's no warning. There's no
know.
warning. It's just there. It's great. I
mean,
love
it's been good because my players, like, I have a character that drew the, I've been playing with snowflake cards, and the player that drew the any alignment, he picked like chaotic neutral, so he's been like super selfish while all the other characters had this pick in the G spectrum. So he's been playing up the I'm not with you goody two shoes group angle with his character. But even him at this point, he's like, no, we must save all these children and all this jazz. Is like, oh, we're like, bringing out the light side of this really dark character because even he can't stand this.
Yeah, it's like after a certain point, you're just like, whoa. Like that's where James found his 2 proteges that he's bringing on with him. So yeah, it's just dark and like you're not expecting it, and then like you keep going through the room and it just keeps getting worse.
Oh, I know, the whole floor is just horrible, and they keep opening up boxes and like
Like, yeah, it's like you're on the ground floor and you go in the first room and you're like, this is terrifying. And then you walk into the next room and like, this is more terrifying. And then you go up the stairs and you're like, open the door and you're like, sweet Jesus, this room is filled with what?
Yeah. It is terrible.
And then, it's awful.
Mm-hmm.
It's awful in the best possible way in that it gives you a great reason to say, yo, maybe like this person shouldn't be in charge of Irison.
Right.
Maybe we're doing the right.
Well, the thing is, it's not like this is getting. They are thoroughly on board now. The players are especially after that dungeon of like they are thoroughly on board. These people are horrible. We have to take them out now. But for an adventure that's main actors are witches and fairies, you don't expect it to go this dark, but it's like, no, this is the Russian version of witches and fairies, and this is some crazily deep. Man, I had a hard time running it for some of it, man, and I was like, I'm glad I've got a group that can hang on, but at one point in time I had to pause the game and say, guys, are we cool with this, or do I need to censor some of our game from here on out?
Yeah, so again, like Robin told us like things got dark and that, if we weren't cool with something just to tell her, but like it almost bothered me with how matter-of-factly she talked about the Russian fairy tales. She was like, yes, this is exactly what it's like. Based in the evil.
Yasumoto, we are talking about the Reign of Winter campaign. Both me and Alex are playing in it in separate campaigns right now, which is kind of fun because we get to compare notes every now and then. And now I've got him on the show, so we will geek out in front of both of, actually all of our audience. There's more than 2 people watching right now.
Wow, wow, people are like actually hanging around to hear what I have to say. This is awesome. Thank you, loyal people.
All right, so since we talked to you, Osmoso has a question. Are your groups doing anything to keep the story going between sessions, like forum posts or emails? Yes, my group has been doing. Well, one of my characters, the aforementioned chaotic neutral half orc Blood Rager. I think Blood Rager is
Okay.
Pathfinder's new favorite class. Everybody loves it.
I listen. It's all the wonderful of the barbarian, but with magic.
Yeah.
Like I can't even blame people. I have a level 11 PFS Blood Rager.
Yeah, there are 3 PFS Blood Ragers in our normal group that I play around with on weekends.
It's the
So he has. This is not considered canon, but he has been releasing to our Facebook group. His character's name is Torment, and he's like, it's Torment tweets. So let me pull up one of the most recent Torment tweets. Alex, while I'm pulling this up, do your players do anything? Are you doing anything between sessions?
so we haven't. It's something that I want to do, just to the capacity that I want to start coordinating with Robin about when Zanzo being a kitsune is going to like become public knowledge, because one of the things is that it's fun to have the secret, but like James likes to say, if something doesn't happen at the table, then it's really not canon. So like I want to make sure that eventually like it becomes like common knowledge, like hey, because it's more fun if you go a long time and then it's the face turn, you know.
Mhm.
So I have a couple ideas in mind. Most involve the NPC I mentioned that I seduced, and like we have kind of this weird sort of like we're broken up relationship because I'm a liar and she can't trust me, and you know it's kind of like a coming clean story. I wrote a song. I haven't decided what I'm gonna do with it, but I wrote a song because I'm a bard, and I have to figure out what's gonna happen with said song because I have no singing talent, but I'm good enough to write the song and make it sound okay. Like I've sung it to my brother once, and he was like, "That wasn't the most awful thing I've ever heard," and I was like, "I guess that's kind of a compliment. Thank you."
Now, like you can hire like professional voice talent to do things for you. I'm sure you can find something on Fiverr or one of the voice networks. Just pay out $25 or whatever, and well, it might be more, but I've usually have recording commercials, but that would be long. Never mind. Random tangent ended.
The thing is that if I was gonna have the song actually be sung, even though I'm terrible, I would want to be the one to do it because it's my character, you know. I don't know if that makes sense. Like, I could totally get someone better than me and professional to do it, but it's kind of like hiring a diplomat to make a diplomacy check for you. Like, nobody expects you to be as good as your character anyway. It's just singing happens to be kind of embarrassing for people who aren't good at it.
Mhm.
But, I mean, that doesn't mean that, like, I shouldn't try, I guess, if it's what I end up doing.
Well, I wish you luck with it, and then we can broadcast it to thousands of people.
There's some people! Oh yeah, maybe maybe like we can do like a Patreon thing, and like if we reach this goal, Alex will sing the song live.
Yes,
and you can
live.
affiliate the F-Man Gamer forever.
We've already
In
got
the
Ryan to
comment
sing
section.
goblin songs, so why not?
Yeah, I mean, in the comment section, how many of you people would want to hear me sing this song as like some kind of weird reward or whatever? That super special snowflake reward.
Now I've got Torment's tweet here. It's from Torment, which is at TastyWolves5227.
Okay.
His tweet is oven fried, doll lied, child cried, torment sighed, old lady died, note to self, purchase travel pillow and new pants. Ooh. Hashtag Torment tweets.
I mean, they're kind of weird, but they're also pretty funny.
Yes. So that's the only thing going on between sessions is those getting posted. You've played through it. You probably know what section he's talking about.
Yeah, I know exactly which section. The person he's talking about hit my entire party with scare, except for me, and like people ran downstairs and like jumped out of windows and stuff. So I had to literally run around and survive by myself against her solo for 6 rounds. It wasn't fun. It
That
wasn't fun.
sounds terrible. I mean,
Oh, it was.
she was a terrible fight. She took out a lot
So
of the characters.
I want you to take that comment I just made about me having to fight her solo. Me fighting her solo involved me like ear piercing screaming her and then running away while she was dazed. It basically turned into Tom and Jerry. But I ran into a room we hadn't looked in to hide, hoping that it was a place I could hide in. And I opened the door, and it was the room next to the kitchen, and you know what was in there.
Oh, good God.
So that's like me running away from this witch, and I open that door, and that's what I see. So yes, hiding didn't work because I was screaming too loud.
Oh. That's got to be like a negative 10 penalty at worst, man.
But you have to think like the scenario writer couldn't have had that scene happen better if he like planned it that way and railroaded you into it. Like, I'm running away from this witch. Like, I want to say what was in it, but do you think it's a spoiler?
It is, because it's that them finding out that thing is fun, and I like to see it happen.
Yeah, I can't. You're right. It is way too fun. It's what's in that room is horrifying, and any character who isn't chaotic evil is going to be disturbed, and I feel like most players are disturbed by it, whether they admit it or not.
Mm-hmm. All right. Zoriel is suggesting auto-tune.
Auto-tune?
Yes.
As in, like...
You sing and record it, and it's your voice, but auto-tune it, so it sounds good.
Huh. That's not a bad idea, Z. That's not a bad idea. I mean, like, but, you know, at least for me, part of the thing is, like, when I'm role-playing, I feel like I should be in it. So it feels weird for me to say, I'm role-playing! Do-do-do-do, do-do-do-do-do, you know, and have something else play it.
I mean, everybody's got a cell phone handy.
That's true.
Or get the Sirenscape custom sound thing, and you just like, and just have that ready for your character.
Yeah, there you go.
You just record a whole lot of like random singing voices. Button, song A, song B.
Have you been giving your players any special like cool tricks or like powers or items or whatever while they've been adventuring?
Well, one of my players drew a card for a special item from the Snowflake deck, so he's got he is a gunslinger, and he's playing an old sheriff type, so he's got a sheriff.
Nice.
So he's got a sheriff's badge whose magic property is discern lies.
That's pretty awesome.
Yep. It has to grow with him when he gets higher levels, so it's going to pick up detect evil and detect magic, and it's probably some protection abilities too. But yeah, so that's what he's running around with. But as far as everybody else, I haven't really messed with the standard treasure too much because it's been kind of fun seeing what they do with the defaults.
Yeah,
because this gives you a lot of treasure.
Really? I thought we've been kind of like low for most of it. Maybe it's like, how many players do you have in your group?
6.
We have 6 too, and we felt like we've been kind of like not really having anything. Like we had a death and it was a big loss.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
We've had for us we've been pretty well. I mean, there's several magic weapons in the group at this point. The rings of protection are being passed out. The cloaks of resistance are finally being passed out. You know, all the standards. And money wise, they've had a lot of money, and there's been a few good opportunities to spend the money. So this is disparate.
Yeah, we haven't.
Have you just been not finding all the secret treasures?
Maybe, I don't know. It's possible. I thought we were pretty good, but like generally what ends up happening is that if I fail a spellcraft check, we don't know what something is because nobody else has spellcraft. Except for James has spellcraft, but he doesn't have detect magic because he's a rogue. And then we also have one person who's like crazy good at perception, and none of us can ever like match that person. So if he fails, we're usually not in a very good shape. We have a lot of hyper specialists that a lot rides on them in our group. It's a good thing and a bad thing. We have some overlap, like both James and our oh, I forgot to mention this character. Oh, I love this character. Our friend Alex, which can sometimes get confusing, is playing a Cathasa.
Don't catch the reference. Sorry.
It's the 4-armed aliens from Numeria.
Oh goodness!
So he's got that crazy archetype from People of the Stars that lets him dual wield bows.
Oh man,
it actually isn't. He misses most of the time. The only time he ever hits is when I buff him. So it's actually surprisingly balanced. Like I was really. I was in your camp too. I was like, oh, this is like the most optimizer thing ever. But like, man, oh man, when you try to add 2 weapon fighting penalties to many shot and rapid shot and deadly aim, nope. Like, nope, you miss a lot. But yeah, so he's got this character who's got my favorite name. It's Armored by Distance, because he just stays away from everybody. He's armored by being far away. And the reason I asked you about special things is that Robin gives us special story snowflake abilities and items and powers throughout the adventure. So like she sprinkles them in. Like when we got to the end of book 2, we found the corpse of a certain red character, and he had a like when we met into him, like with his last breath, he's impaled on a spike and he grabs me and like speaks something, and like it's kind of like his soul comes out into my mouth, weird creepy thing, but like it taught me how to sing Inspire Courage as a power ballad. So when I sing it as a power ballad, everybody's weapon gets flaming. So like my passion literally makes their weapons burst into fire, which is pretty cool. Armored by Distance has these glasses that let her tell how close to death people are, and so like everybody has this really weird or cool item or like story thing or special ability, and it's been really fun. Having the power ballad of the Red Rider has been pivotal to us not dying several times, so that's been cool. That's what she calls it, the power ballad of the Red Rider.
Excellent.
It's been fun. Are there any other adventure paths that are catching your eye right now?
I'm trying not to, because if I pay too much attention to them, I tend to want to play them. Right now, all of my players are just like, pugging me all the time, asking if there's been any new Starfinder news released, and I think they're kind of eager to get into the Starfinder aspect of things.
I've gotten that a lot too. A lot of my gaming group friends, the Reign of Winter group, they're like, "So you're a freelancer? Are they gonna send you Starfinder beta?" I'm like, I don't know. Leave me alone. I don't ask for it. If they send it to me, they send it to me. But like, they're like, we really want to play. Like I'm pretty sure they see me as their Starfinder daddy, which is weird. But yeah. Hopefully Sutter or Owen or somebody is watching so they can just nip that dream in the bud.
Right, cut it off. No
Starfinder. Yeah. I can wait. I'm patient.
Well, I don't. I kind of don't want it to ruin a Reign of Winter game. I mean, like, because if that were to, if the beta hit and we were one of the teams, man, I think they would just jump at it. Oh man. But it does have me excited. I mean, I didn't expect it to have this much of a excitement and draw around it, but it does. It seems to be building its own little like miniature zeitgeist.
I mean, like, I feel like it is a genre that is not currently well served in the RPG industry. You have Fantasy Flight Star Wars game, but like that's really about it right now. Other than that, you're playing Aethera in Pathfinder. So, like, the idea of having a completely new game is probably attractive to a lot of people. I'm still waiting to see how Starfinder affects Pathfinder sales. I'm hoping that they can exist side by side and people will want to buy both, because I think that would be better for both games. But, I can't think of a time we ever saw anything like this, so there's not a whole lot of data or precedent to go off of.
Well, I mean, there is. Like, before Star Wars was Fantasy Flight, it was a D20 game published by Wizards of the Coast alongside D&D, and D&D was doing
Yeah,
just
I played
fine.
that one. That game was really fun.
Hmm.
I really liked Saga Edition.
Yeah, Saga Edition was great, even if it was a teaser for 4th edition. Uh, so,
Better prototype.
yeah, it was
Oh,
much
sorry, I
better.
have a cough.
Yeah. I like Saga Edition. It was great. And there's been, it's countless times that other companies have done this. But then again, you go back to some of the early days when like some of our early interviews with Lisa Stevens or some of the early Anti Leaves Story Hours. And she's like, and then one of the mistakes they were making is they were splitting their audience. And so.
Yeah.
So that has me, of course, worried about the future of things, and hopefully everything will go well. Our Eric Mona interview put a lot of those fears at rest when we got to talk to him and heard that there are more books being published that weren't announced. So that will be nice.
Oh yeah, yeah. Like, I mean, I think that was the Eric Mona keep calm and carry on episode.
Hmm.
Like, it felt like Eric was doing a lot of like just like, yo, we've got you. We care about you, Pathfinder guys. We won't let you down.
Hmm.
Trust us. We won't hurt you.
Yeah, and the
I
enthusiasm was like bleeding off of that, and it was nice.
listen. Mona has a lot to be enthusiastic about. Have you been reading his Worldscape blogs?
Oh yeah, man! I can't wait. I mean, some people are starting to get a hold of that now. It came out today, I think, is the release date. I haven't got my copy yet. I should check my comic book store. I mean, I'm getting a copy sent to me or in the subscriptions, but I haven't. But that sometimes means I'm a month behind, and I can't be a month behind on
Yeah.
this one.
No.
No.
I was joking with him on his author page. I was like, when this book comes out, it's going to be the first time that John Compton and Linda Zayas Palmer have to figure out how to allow an archetype from a comic book into PFS, because everybody is going to want to play the official Paizo spellless ranger. Like, it's like, wow, like you're doing the big thing that everybody wants there, Eric. Like, I'm sure it's the big thing that everybody wants. But like, you're doing it. Like, yeah, I feel like there's a lot to be excited about. It's weird, but like I'm almost more excited for the future now than I was at Gen Con.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, it seems like Gen Con was one of the things we had. If you notice, we had a lot of Starfinder news from Gen Con, but we didn't have anything new for Pathfinder.
Yeah,
So like I'm definitely glad to see there's some more coming up. Wanting to hit some more on that. Now I'm kind of blanking, but
that's okay.
all right.
You're good.
Yep. Well,
I mean, like, if going back to possibility of being in Starfinder beta, if that happens, I'm going to GM it whether my players like it or not, and they're all
you
going
will
to
play. You will play now.
You'll do it my way. You'll do it my way, and you'll get to be in charge of the Star Soon battleship, and we'll do Kitsune in space, and then they'll never want to play again. It'll be great. I'll get out of it one way. It'll be awesome.
Mm.
Except either then or they'll love it, and then they'll make me run it forever. Like, there's two options right there. But yeah, lots of cool stuff. I'm really excited. I have 2 player companion books that I'm a part of coming out next month.
Oh, anything you can talk about?
One of them is Blood of the Beast. I'm so excited.
Oh, yep.
Like that's the product where, like, it was announced, and then like the second post was like, so Alex is part of this, right? I'm like, and then so like 5 posts later, Owen was like, yeah, so I think it's not really like surprising anybody to say that Alex is on this book. Yeah. And I'm like, no, not really. I'm excited. I feel like there's a lot of excitement for it, a lot more than like what's typical for a player companion. I wasn't in the actual audience, but I heard that when they were talking about the future of the player companion and campaign setting line, the Blood of the Beast book got the most questions. So that makes me excited, not necessarily because my favorite race is in it, but I think that the non-human, non-core races in Pathfinder could use a lot more of a limelight thrown on them. So like if this book is popular, maybe we could get like a race version of Inner Sea Faiths, where you take like 6 or 7 races and then just give them the advanced race guide treatment, or not the advanced race guide, the Inner Sea races treatment, because like those opening chapters where they talk about how each race lives and works in Galarian is by far the best content in that book. I would love to see that.
Yeah, I mean, I liked a lot of Inner Sea races, but there were some of our favorites didn't get the page count they deserved for sure on that one.
And so like that's the thing, like a lot of the pages went to races that have had entire player companions built around them.
Right.
So like it's not that, like, I mean, I get why, the core races you got to, but at the same time it's almost like, we kind of need the hype train to come in for some of these things that aren't in the core rulebook, because people are always going to play elves and dwarves and humans and halflings and half orcs. Like you kind of need to give people the excitement for the things that aren't core, the things that they aren't familiar with.
So what do you think are the races right now besides the core that a lot of Pathfinder players are excited to use? Like what are like the rockstar races that aren't core?
The rockstar races that aren't core. Are we talking about period or PFS?
Both. Like what do you see a lot of people wanting to play?
So PFS is a lot easier, and if we're not talking core races, I feel like Asmar and Tieflings are probably still the most popular, but that's mostly in my experience because of the big rush to get in before they were booted at the end of season 6, or the end of season 6 going into season 7, or maybe it was 5 going to 6. I don't remember, but regardless of when it happened, like you see a lot because of them. Honestly, where I am in Philly, pretty much everybody is human. Couple dwarves, couple elves, couple gnomes, not really many halflings. I kind of throw the entire measuring stick off because I have 16 kitsune now. No, 15 kitsune. 15 or 16. So like there's a crap ton, but that number goes way down when you try to filter it in the lens of how many different people are playing the race. But like I feel like kitsune are really popular because they hit a whole bunch of different like likes. So I mean, obviously you have the fan club who enjoys the anthropomorphic animals. They like having a race that they can play. If you're like me and you think shapeshifting is awesome and it's a really great narrative tool for characters, you have a shapeshifter that you can play. Some people just like the idea of a really pretty looking fox race, and they don't really fall into the furry camp. It's okay. It seems to like hit scratch a whole bunch of itches. So I've seen that one is very popular. I think I've seen, like when you're not talking about classics anymore, it stops really being regular. I know a lot of people like playing goblins, if only because the rules practically say you shouldn't play one.
Right.
Like, I think there's a lot of these guys are silly, zany, and fun, and the rules say I shouldn't, so I want it. But other than that, I don't think there's really like any race that really hedges out more than any other, aside from like ones that are classic. I think that's the hill that a lot of newer races have to go over. They have to sort of like pique people's interest more than core and more than the things that Pathfinder inherited from 3.5. So like orcs and drow and duergar. I mean, nobody in their right mind lets you play a duergar. Like, it is what it is. All right, I shouldn't say the right mind. That might not be true. There's probably plenty of good reasons. I've never seen a good reason personally at my table, but I mean that's just where I am.
Over our way, I see a lot of people want to play Azamars. Not as many people want to play Tieflings. Like a whole lot of Azamars.
I mean, like
a
when
few
you get down at the Asmar is a super optimized race.
Yeah.
Like it might be the only race. Like I mean, because of Blood of Angels.
Oh my God, Blood of Angels broke that race. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
It can be anything you want. The best wizard, the best sorcerer, the best paladin.
Yeah, and I mean, like humans have to give up their bonus feat and their bonus skills to do it, where the Asmar still has cool spells and skill bonuses. So like, it's a really powerful race, and I really think that it's kind of the optimizer's choice. Like, it's human at just a little bit below them, but it's like Asmar and then human.
Mm-hmm.
But that's my opinion. There are builds that you can use other races to do crazy things, but they tend to be very niche. Like enchantment, kitsune, sorcerers. DC 21, level 4. I may have a sorcerer that does that.
I'm sure you do.
You have to have one.
You have
when
to.
You got to break it at least once.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty mellow about it though. And then also PFS is really good about not using a lot of things that are immune to mind affecting. So I'm like, oh hey, look at that undead guy. I guess I'm gonna just conjure pit. Woo, goodbye. That was what my story on Facebook the other day was about.
Oh.
I conjured a pit, dropped a skeletal champion in it. All the marshals jumped in after it. Can you see my exasperation?
Okay.
Yeah. It's tough being a wizard mage character. You know, you do all these really great, cool tactical things, and then the marshals are just like, oh.
Oh man, that as a person who plays a lot of wizards, man, I understand that pain a lot, to the point that I usually have to have the talk with the players, and it's like, hey, I'm going to be able to shape the battlefield, and I'm going to be able to disable enemies. This doesn't work if you G.I. Joe it in there without any consideration to what has been done to make this easy for you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in the player's defense, they waited to jump in until all the other enemies were cleared. There was only him left. Still, that level 1 fighter did not need 2d6 points of falling damage. He did not need it. Also, in his argument, he really, he didn't jump in on purpose. He just made the mistake of standing adjacent to the pit.
Oh. Well, that happens. Oh, darn you, sneaky pits.
I mean, the pit was just really lonely. He wanted some friends. So, you said that that Asmars are really common where you were. What else is common?
Well, there's a couple of Kitsunes I see, and Changelings. People like to play Changelings.
Dude, my buddy Robin, who I mentioned, our Verena Winter GM, she loves Changelings. We played at Gen Con and did the PFS thing, and I think Changeling was like the low GM boon, and she was like, I don't care, it's mine. It's on my paper. I'm building a Changeling. I'm like, okay, you do what you want. You're in charge of your own destiny.
I kind of like a lot of players are missing. Gosh, I forget what they were called. The elemental, not the
Gensai.
The Gensai. Yes, they're missing the Gensai. And there's some close stuff in Pathfinder, but there's nothing quite like it. So I guess I would like something like that to exist, but I mean, you can get the Geniekin, the various Geniekin to kind of fill that role, kind of, but that's about it.
The Geniekin are tough because they're really not that good until you build for their racial traits, and then they become dumb. Is really what happens. Like they are just a sliding scale. Either you have racial traits that don't matter and you're terrible, or you've built some sort of crazy fireball Ifrit wizard who's like caster level +3, and you're just blowing things up for 76 at level 4. Like there's no in between with them.
Yeah, well, no matter how broke you make them, these Blood Ragers running rampant in PFS right now are breaking everything.
And they're loving every second of it.
They are.
So Pathfinder has a lot of new classes. What classes have you seen the most of? Like the most of what people are playing from like newer books?
Well, like I said, Blood Ragers showing up a bunch. I see Occultists are showing up a bunch, but none of my players seem to have quite grasped how to work it yet. Like how to make that a good build, because they're definitely harder than your average bear. Other than that, I haven't seen a lot of adoption of the newer classes. Some of, let's see, Hunter. There's a couple of Hunters showing up, but then those are still from Advanced Class Guide. Nobody's played a Vigilante yet at all. I haven't seen anybody jump on that yet. How about you? Any of the newer classes?
Kineticist is pretty popular around here. So it's just like you gotta. I really think it happened when I did an adventure where, like, one of the things the players have to go over is they have to figure out how to cross a giant pit of lava, and they're supposed to either fly or jump. And the telekineticist used his like special power and calculated that he could lift 9 tons. And I'm like, well, there's definitely not 9 tons of magma here. They just walked under the magma. So like after that happened, we have a lot of telekineticists, but the KO kineticist from Occult Origins, the negative energy gravity one, is really popular. Then Occultist is popular, but mostly because people really like the power where you spend mental focus and get Bane on your weapon. So I see a lot of those. Dex to damage Occultist, putting Agile on their weapon is pretty common too around here. Mesmerist, I literally have the only Mesmerist I've seen besides one of my friends, so there's 2 of us, and like I am not a huge Mesmerist fan, so it's really weird for me to be one of 2, and I don't play him very often. Nobody's touched Spiritualist. Nobody's touched. There's me and the same other guy have done Vigilantes. He's done way more with it than I have, and he's like a really hammy type who like he plays like crazy Japanese like theme song music and does Ginyu Force poses whenever he transforms, and like gets a like. I think people are intimidated to play it now because of him. Actually, and then. Advanced Class Guide, Blood Ragers, super popular. Lots of swashbucklers. Lots of them. They're everywhere. You can't throw a stone without hitting a swashbuckler around here. There are a couple of investigators. I really like that class, so that makes me happy. And Brawler has a bit of a fandom, actually. And it's funny, because there's like 3 or 4 of us who all have Brawlers, and none of us have the same build. Like, my Brawler is an Exemplar. He does the Bardic Performance stuffs. My one friend plays the Wild Child, who has an animal companion. And then my one friend has the Steel Breaker, where he has a cestus strapped to his arm and he shatters everything. So, like, I really like the class for how versatile that it is. And I'm happy that we have a lot of them around.
Since you brought up, I do have a new player that's been playing a Blood Rager Spiritualist combo character. Which...
Does it work?
It works for now. I kind of wonder how it's going to work beyond 3rd level. But basically, he's got the ultimate flanking buddy. And that's about all. Yeah.
Phantoms are tough. Like, they're not really... Most of them aren't very good at fighting, like, unless you take the angry one. And that's not always fun. So, like, I don't think that the Spiritualist has really figured out who it is yet. It's kind of like how a lot of the Advanced Class Guide classes needed, or not the Advanced Class Guide, a lot of the core rulebook classes really needed the Advanced Class Guide to start coming into their own, and they needed more archetypes to be made, and more unique spells and more really crazy cool feats. I don't think we're there yet for a lot of these newer classes. It's kind of what happens when you put too many classes into a system all at the same time. Like people will people, both players and designers, will gravitate towards the easier ones and pick those up first and mess around with them a little bit.
And the only other character, it's not even a new character. I'm trying to work with somebody to intentionally build the most broken Unchained Rogue we can.
Oh?
And I might have to bug you sometime for some pointers on some build advice for making this thing broke. We're going for as much burst damage as possible.
So, I mean, the best way to do that is actually non-lethal, by grabbing things like Sapmaster.
Oh?
Yeah, there's a feat called Sapmaster, where whenever you use a bludgeoning weapon to deal non-lethal sneak attack damage, the first feat gives you a bonus on the roll equal to the number of sneak attack dice you roll. And the second feat, I think it got nerfed, so somebody in the audience, if you know if it got nerfed, please confirm. But the second feat used to have you roll your sneak attack damage twice and add them together when you sneak attacked with the non-lethal weapon. Oh. It was crazy, and if it got nerfed, I am not surprised. Like, seeing a rogue who's got like the scout archetype charge and thwack somebody with a sap, and then hitting them for like over 60 points of non-lethal damage. Usually they had the enforcer feat, so they got a free demoralize check, so they were they were shaken. And then if you're an Unchained Rogue, you add debilitating injury on top of that, and you're just like, guess what? You've got a -8 penalty on attack rolls against me and a -6 against everybody else.
So far, I need to go and take a better look at that one, because right now we've been going with the Dagger Master build.
Dagger Master's good. Anything that lets you sneak attack easier is usually going to be powerful. What James is doing with his Unchained Rogue right now is he's a multi-class Scout Unchained Rogue, and with the Inspired Blade Swashbuckler up to 5 levels. So his rapier is always keen. He has Precise Strike for +5 damage on every swing. He adds his Dex to the damage. He gets an extra +1 from his Swashbuckler training. And he's got something like 3 or 4 d6 of sneak attack that he can do every time he charges. And whenever he does it, he usually puts an attack roll penalty on his enemy, so it's harder for them to hit him. And that penalty carries over when they try to hit him, so he parry and repulses them, and they have that penalty.
Oh, fun. Great.
Yeah. It's like, honestly, the thing about the Unchained Rogue is that it can do really good burst damage, but its biggest strength is being really nasty at debuffs. Because you can pick up a couple of those rogue talents that do things like, when you sneak attack somebody, they can't make attacks of opportunity, and you can stack that with the penalty, like the movement speed penalty, and they're like, oh, I can't get away, and then the wizard just cries in the corner.
Oh.
One of my best moments in Pathfinder Society's Serpent's Rise, I was playing the Unchained Rogue character in that, and I rolled bad on initiative, but I beat the enemy paladin we were fighting, so I took out my crossbow and I shot him, and because I hit him and I beat him in initiative, it was a sneak attack, he was flat-footed, and there's a whole list of things you could do to him with debilitating injury. I was like, your movement speed is halved. So, like, he could charge 20 feet or could move 10 feet. Like he was, and so he's trying to get into combat, and he's like built to protect people and like gives AC bonuses when he's around them, and we just murdered all of his allies before he could get close because I speed penalized him.
Excellent.
It was pretty great. So yeah, don't discount the debuffing power of the Unchained Rogue.
All right. Well, I think we're coming up on time, so it's about time to wrap things up. We will be right back with wrap-ups and shout-outs. And we're back.
Hi.
Hello. All right.
I've returned to check in Sands to carve your skull and whatnot.
And we still have no Ryan. At this point, we are going to have to hire an adventure crew to seek him out.
Do you think he's got the 5 prestige for a body recovery?
Oh, man, that may be a problem. I mean, he's been spending it like crazy lately.
Yeah, it's true.
Well, having a kid will do that.
I heard he knocked in 2 prestige in order to like go to Gen Con, another 4 prestige to buy like a crib or something. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Well, buying the house is a crazy amount of prestige.
It's like what, 8?
Yeah, you can't go doing that and expect get automatic reses or body recovery or anything.
It's true.
Yeah, I'm actually having to advise my players right now about like a lot of them are new and they're like, well, what should I do with this prestige? And I'm like, well, there's a few things, but you might want to consider.
Yeah.
What do you do with your prestige?
I stockpile it for when I die.
Mm-hmm.
I hold on to it. I want people to owe me favors so that they'll bring me back from the dead.
That's a good one.
I actually I have an Unchained Rogue like we were talking about, and he recently died. And normally it's like level 3, whatever, it happens. It's usually easier just to let them stay dead. But not only was this the character that I put all of my Reign of Winter boons on because we've been playing for PFS credit. Mm-hmm. So we play in campaign mode where we play our own characters, play whatever we want, but we get to turn in whatever we do for credit for PFS. So he had both of my Reign of Winter boons, one of which hadn't even triggered yet because he wasn't high enough level, and on top of that, he had my Charity Convention Thane Guard Mantle boon. Like, there are like 4 of those in existence that are currently in player hands right now. So I was like, please, friends, help me bring this character back to life. He's got too many rare boons on him. Like, I put my I put my PaizoCon 2016 GMing boon on him.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so he had like everything, and I was like, "No, you need to help me." And so, like, he's back. I've been having to run a couple games and put the credit on him to like build him up. It's kind of like getting your immunity back up after a cold. Yeah, so I hope Ryan's got the prestige in order to come back from the Nether.
All right. So things to shout out. Anything you want to shout out? Any projects you're working on, or any projects you want to draw attention to?
Actually, I own my own company. It was alluded to when Mr. Bulmahn was on the show earlier. We did a product. When I say we, I hired 2 freelancers to help me. It's Isabel Lee and Jolly. Isabel Lee is a very renowned freelancer. She does a lot for Paizo. She's in a bunch of player companions with me, and she worked on all of the Chitons in Etheria, the Etheria campaign setting specifically. And Jolly is the crazy mastermind behind the Kineticist of Polymorpha line for Purple Duck Games. Like, the only person I know who might have a chance of out-kineticisting Mark Seifter himself. Like, which is scary. Like, I've been in the room with Mark when he's talking about that class, and to have someone who may be his equal is like, ah! So, we teamed up together to do this book called The Corruption Codex.
Oh.
And, yeah, so it's a first installment. We're hoping that it's popular enough that we'll get to do more. We wrote 4 new corruptions that were just, like, if the horror adventures is classic corruptions, like for classic horror, we are modern and crazy and all over the place, and it's fun. We also have like a lot of new magic items and feats to make corruptions a little bit more in the player's control and how they progress and whatnot. So we did a de-evolution corruption, which is basically, you turn into an ape man. It's great. You're a Neanderthal. Your brain power slowly whittles away as your body bulks up. It uses a mechanic called sentience, where instead of like you fail saves and you immediately progress, failed saves cause your sentience to go down, and every time your sentience drains, your progression stage advances. So it usually takes a while and a lot of failed numbers, but your sentience is based on your mental ability scores. So the farther you corrupt, the faster you corrupt, just because you have fewer sentience to drain. We have a kaiju, a corruption, where you basically get big and angry, and eventually you turn into like a 50-foot size monster, which is cool.
Cool, but man, that's got to be hard to educate.
It uses my macro-sized creatures rules from Micro-Sized Adventures. So it uses a rule set designed to make characters bigger, and just takes those rules and adds on monster powers. So like you can pick up cars and throw them at people, and you get like natural attacks, and it's really cool. The art for that one is a picture of a kitsune turning into a Godzilla hybrid monster, and it's really funny. I've gotten a lot of comment on people who like don't really like kitsune. They're like, wow, this is actually really cool. Like, you're awesome. There's Isabel did a void spawn corruption, which she describes as Eldrazi the corruption. You turn into a horrific other extra dimensional monster whose only purpose in life is to bring greater horrors into the world by acting as a beacon for their powers. So it's sort of Cthulhu-y, but it's also just very eldritch horror, and it's really cool and it's really creepy. You get like bisected limbs. And then the last one is the fungal corruption. You get covered in like Mindslaver mold.
Oh, well, that's great.
Oh, the picture's hilarious. And then so like it has feats, like there's corrupt feats where it gets harder to save against your disease, but you also don't lose control. Like you just become wicked and evil, and so you have these powers, but and you're fully corrupted, but you still have a control over yourself somewhat. And then you also have like salvation feats where every time you take them, the DC to progress goes down, but you have to take ability damage in order to activate them. It's a really cool book. It's been pretty popular so far. We hit number 2 of most downloaded products last week, so that was awesome. I'm doing an Unchained Fighter book next, so that'll be pretty cool. Taking all the stuff I wrote in like Weapon and Armor Masters and exploding minds. How about you? What have you been up to?
I don't have a company who's producing things, but I wanted to shout out to this is a shout out I like to do every so often. But if you're listening to No Direction and you haven't checked out our website and the blog content there, you're missing out on probably half the greatest content. We are embarrassed of riches here to have some of the most talented freelancers in the industry writing for us on our blog periodically. For instance, just to give you a rundown of some of the stuff posted this week, some of last week, I wanted to make sure I called out at least one from every blogger. Inspire Confidence from Monica Marlowe was talking about tools for building better storytelling. Louis Loza did The Devil Dinosaur, which is I love Devil Dinosaur, in his monstrous physique. After that, Alex, you were talking about a story about sharing agency in your guidance. And Code Switch was Where in the World is Drangle Drink?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Like, I read that one. I try to read everybody when I can.
Uh-huh.
Like, I have to give mad props to James. That article is brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
It is brilliant. It is I don't like Ryan and I were talking about it. I think he missed the reference, but it's basically a reference to Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the entire thing is just like, Carmen, like, Drendel Drang is a place that's like this, and then which one of these places could it be? Oh, it's Taldor. Like James always
Mm-hmm.
impresses me with how creative his presentation style is. Like,
I'm sorry. Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's fine. I was going to say, like, he's very different from, like, Anthony or Luez or Monica or Andrew or I.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so what else?
Okay, Anthony Lee, he did Musings on Mastery. You did another one about charisma. And Andrew Marlowe did a fun sort of like deep dive into character sheets and how they influence the rules and his history with playing games and different character sheets, which was a fun read. Every single day of the week we have new content on NoDirectionPodcast.com. You should definitely come check us out, not just to listen to the shows, though we love that you listen to the shows or watch the shows or however you consume our shows. And it's all free content. Just go up there. You might also want to check out the KD Makes page where we post some of the little add-ons and like mini products that we've just talked about on the show and then make anyway and share with you guys for free. And of course you'll have links and bios to all of our staff writers and podcasters, and you'll find their con coverage and all kinds of awesome stuff. So please go check out our website as well as checking out our normal podcast feeds and stuff. You'll really enjoy it. Alright, so I think that about does it for this episode. I would like to thank Jason Bulmahn again for coming on to talk about his new project. Thank you very much, Alex, for stepping in to cover for Ryan today.
Anytime. Hopefully we find him in the nether soon.
Mm-hmm. So until next time, I'm Jefferson J. Thacker, also known as Parent.
And I'm Alexander Agunas, the Everyman Gamer.
Alright. And if you need to find your path, you need no direction. Bye, guys.